Hello, my name is Sarah. I'm an English teacher and language anxiety coach. And in this video, I'm going to share a story. And this is an experience I had with an IELTS student. So this video is a really good one to watch if you are preparing for IELTS. And in particular, if you are having trouble with the IELTS reading paper. Now, IELTS reading is tough, okay? And there have been times in the past where I've been teaching in a classroom and we've been doing an IELTS reading test, and I thought, well, I might as well do the reading test. Now, I have never got a 9 in IELTS reading. I usually get an 8 or an 8.5. And I suspect that if I had to get a 9, if I wanted to do something and to do that thing I needed a 9, I could probably do it. But the point is that there are questions in IELTS reading which are really, really hard. Now, one thing that you should know for IELTS reading and IELTS listening is that the exam is designed for learners at all levels. So it's not like a Cambridge exam. FCE is for people at B2. IELTS is for everyone. And that means that there are some questions which are easy and some questions which are really, really hard. And if you're aiming for a 6, for example, there are going to be questions that you will not be able to answer, and that's okay. If you're aiming for a 7, there will be questions that you can't answer, because there are some questions that are designed to differentiate between 8 and 8.5 and 9, okay? So with IELTS reading, it's really important that you have a plan. Hopefully your teacher is helping you to create a kind of exam strategy. This much time, this much time, this much time, because you must not get stuck on questions. If you can't answer a question, leave it. It might not even be for you anyway. Now, let me tell you about a student of mine then. So this student, I'm going to call him Marco. That's not his real name, but that's okay. Marco was a very special student. Marco had come to the United Kingdom actually as a refugee, and they were living here. But Marco had very complicated learning difficulties. So Marco had dyslexia. Marco had something called ADHD, which makes it hard to concentrate and focus. It also affects, being able to kind of deal with the big picture, because they always wanted all the details and information. And as well as this, Marco also had some very complicated mental health issues, because they had a very difficult, traumatic life in their own country. So Marco was not really, no one is really a normal student, but Marco had a lot of challenges. Now, because Marco lived in the UK, he actually had really good English. Like, his speaking was great, his listening was great, vocabulary was great, all of those things. But with IELTS, he found the reading and writing really, really hard. And he was never able to get the band score he needed to go to university, because it was just too difficult. Now, like most IELTS teachers, I have taught my students to skim and to scan, right? Skim reading, read everything very quickly for the overall meaning, then go back, underline the keywords, and then scan for the keywords, look for the synonyms, blah, blah, blah. That's kind of a very standard way of approaching IELTS reading. And it was something at the time that I just taught to everyone, because that's what the course books told me to do. So I just did it. But with Marco, it didn't work. This strategy did not work for Marco at all, because the way his brain worked, skimming and then going back to the questions and then circling the keywords and then scanning for the keywords, it was far too confusing for him to be able to do that. And then one day I was doing it. I was signed up for like a email course on how to teach IELTS. A lesson came along, and it was about the reading paper, how to teach IELTS reading. And the guy who wrote the email course, IELTS Simon, he said, forget skimming, forget scanning. Just read the question, read the text, answer the questions. I was like, you can't do that in IELTS. You have to skim, you have to scan. But Marco was having so many problems with his reading, that I thought, well, we should try. We should try this crazy strategy of just reading. So I went to Marco's next lesson. I took him an IELTS test, and we sat down on the floor because Marco didn't have much space in his room. And I said, okay, Marco, just start to read and just answer the questions as you're reading, because most of the time, most of the questions happen, you can kind of follow through. Question 1 will be at the top, question 10 will be further down the reading text. They don't jump around. So Marco started to read. He wasn't reading fast, but he wasn't reading slow. He could read at a reasonable speed. And because he had really good vocabulary, he was like, this is the answer for number 1. And it was correct. Then he kept reading and reading. This is the answer for number 2. And as a teacher who had been teaching skimming and scanning for a long time, I was like, oh, this is actually better than skimming and scanning, because my student, all he needs to do is read the IELTS test, the IELTS text, and answer the questions. That's it. It was so much easier for Marco to do that than it was to skim and scan. Now, IELTS Simon in his teacher newsletter made a really good point, which is that a native speaker, if they do the IELTS reading test, they will naturally read it at a normal speed and just answer the questions as they go along. Native speakers won't bother to skim and scan. Now, there is nothing wrong with skimming and scanning. They're great techniques for reading. But it would be an interesting experiment for you to see what it's like to read an IELTS reading text without skimming it first. Can you read it and just answer the questions? And if you can, you're probably making your life a lot easier. Now, I said earlier in this video that the IELTS questions happen in order. The exception to that are those lovely, lovely matching questions. Match the headings to the paragraphs. For some reason, someone in IELTS likes to put these matching questions first. God knows why. This is a trick, because when the questions are first, people think they have to do them first. To do those matching headings to paragraphs, you have to understand the complete text, right? It's really hard to match a heading to a paragraph if you haven't read all the paragraphs, obviously. And I guess most teachers would say, well, this is why you need to skim. You need to skim it so that you get the idea, so that you can match the headings and the paragraphs. What about if you just left the matching question till the end? And then you could just read the text at a normal speed, answer all the other questions, and when you've read all of the text, go back and do the matching exercise then. See what happens. Now, I have not been teaching much IELTS reading recently, but if I was, I would definitely use this strategy with students. It's best for quite strong and proficient students, I would say. And if you are a slow reader, you probably need to do some work at increasing your overall reading speed. But I love this strategy because it's really, really simple, and IELTS is difficult enough. Why not make it simple where you can? Now, if you have any comments, any questions, if you want to disagree with me, if you're a teacher and you think, no, students must skim, I'd love to hear from you, because I think this kind of debate is really important, okay? I'm absolutely a believer in differences of opinion and difference of strategy for different people, okay? Let me know what you think. If you are working for IELTS, good luck to you. It's a tough one, but I'm sure you'll do well, and thanks for watching the video.